The same way I might take 3 photographs of you from different angles, and they should all match. So they all seem like useful avenues of investigation. Religion brings a top-down view to the table that I think we would be unwise to just discard as silly superstition, because it's richer than that. The science is bringing clear empirical data which seems unavoidable.
We can't ignore that.
And they will limit the facts that we should consider, pleasantly or unpleasantly. And the panpsychic version is so wild but strange.
Why is it wild? I wouldn't agree with that.
It's totally counterintuitive, like, to me.
I think it's totally intuitive.
Okay, good for you. Great, you may be ahead of me. But I think if you bite that bullet, thereafter virtually all the inconsistencies disappear. So if you value self-consistency in your axiom, panpsychism actually does a pretty damn good job of squaring.
Sure. I just want to say something about the word wild. Now, me assuming this works on Mars, right? You have gravity on Mars. That's not wild, is it?
No, that's a perfectly reasonable projection.
So if in this grey matter, this cranium, we have consciousness, why would we believe there's not consciousness in the tree or rocks or all around us?
No, you agree, but where it's interesting then is, I'm not living as though this thing has any properties of quality. I'm not living as though it cares or feels anything or has a will or a soul or a destiny. If the panpsychic universe is accurate, I've got to fundamentally change the way I look at it.
I just want to share something with you. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the tree example, the tree used to cry. Can you give that example?
There is one single hadith at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he used to give.
Shout a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, he used to give his sermon on a piece of a tree, like a piece of a tree. So all the time he used to give his sermon there. And then the companions, they suggested to him to build something for him so he could climb like 3 steps, but he could go and give his sermon there. Then he started doing that, and they kind of neglect or just avoided using that tree piece to give sermon on. And then they start hearing sounds, like sound of a cry or something like that from that tree, from that piece. And then he placed his hands on it, and then he said, and that's why many of the companions, they said that tree missed the Prophet, peace be upon him.
It was crying.
And like the sound of crying from that piece of a tree. Okay.
The reason why I brought that up is because you said, the reason why I brought that up is because you said panpsychism would lead to a view where objects have feelings. We as Muslims believe objects do have feelings, like a tree.
That to me is a revelation. Okay, I didn't know.
Well, he is a prophet.
I would say it instantly sounds to me like pantheism, which I thought you.
Not pantheism, panpsychism.
Yeah, it's not that they're.
It's not a million miles from pantheism.
It's very far away.
I have a question.
Continue.
So
God created everything, and everything has consciousness. Is very different to everything is God, which is pantheism. Two different views.
I understand there's panentheism as well. Hang on, let's not go down that rabbit hole for now. Your point.
So, if you have this panpsychism and you believe that there's this idea of consciousness which exists in things, not just people, right? Now, immediately what becomes a problem for me is how do you limit these things, right? When I look at people, right, psyche makes perfect sense because it's consolidated within the body, right? If I'm going to be conscious, I can agree with the idea of consciousness as sensations because there's a me, right? I'm not her, right? I'm not him. And so there's my consciousness, her consciousness, his consciousness. Now, when we're talking about objects, right, when does this dirt become that mountain? When does that mountain become that stream, right? When does the atmosphere become...
Sure. The way I would answer that is, firstly, it's a brilliant question.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer at all, but I believe it doesn't make a difference to that you having... you not understanding what is the demarcation of one consciousness to another. It's not a defeater to the idea of panpsychism.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's not a defeater. The reason why I bring it up is because it seems to be more conforming to the consistency of my view, right? That consciousness seems to just be an emergent phenomenon of us having brains, right?
I would say you are making an exception for the humans, and not for any other living thing.
I would.
And in a way, I would say that's not being self-consistent.
I would include other living things on that. So I believe that dogs are conscious.
What about a rock? Say a rock.
So rocks don't have brains, and I believe that it's an emergent function of brains.
Fine. So a rock is made of what exactly? at rock bottom, what are they made of?
Different minerals, right?
Then what's underneath the minerals?
Inanimate.
Inanimate.
We have two substrates. We have a substrate which is organic and a substrate which is inorganic.
Yep.
And I live my life as though inorganic stuff like plastic and rocks do not have any level of qualia.
Right.
A panpsychic position would say that I'm wrong and that should adjust my perspective. If I did do that thing, it feels very counterintuitive, but it would square all of the inconsistencies that I can see.
But here's my question. Why is it counterintuitive?
I honestly don't know. I can look you honestly in the eye and go, it doesn't feel that way.
That's fine. No, I actually respect that because
it's very difficult to feel any differently about it.
what I would say to that, Tony, for me, it feels the same feeling that you have that is counterintuitive. I have a feeling that is intuitive.
Well, then you may be ahead of me. If you're right, you may be ahead of me. That's like, if it's true, then I would like to have that intuition. Okay? And it's not like I just don't have any respect for the physical world and nature and beauty and whatever. I do, and I like to romanticize it, but I do demark important lines of the human life is.
Can I just add something? Can I just add something to this? This is purely. I'm not making a justified argument. I'm not even giving you reasons. You said romance, right? If somebody believes in a pragmatic worldview, there is nothing more beautiful than the idea of panpsychism from a romantic point of view. It's the most powerful perspective, which is why it's such a. If we are to live our life in a way that's the happiest, and we don't really care about truth. Now, obviously, I believe it's true. Even from that perspective, it's better to believe in panpsychism than not believe in panpsychism.
It's like Kant's rule about will it to be a rule. Live in a way that you would will it was the law. Are you saying that? You're saying maybe we should live as though we're in a panpsychic universe?
I'm not. I'm saying if someone is a pragmatist, I'm not saying they should. I'm saying your fulfillment in life is you're more likely to be happy if you subscribe to that perspective than another, if your goal is ultimately happiness.
Simultaneously, I do want to be a realist and I want to stick within the facts, and I always want to look at the strongest counter-argument to whatever I believe.
But can I just add something? When I speak to certain people who are liberals, they will always go back to pragmatically what feels good. But it doesn't feel right. There's a lot of feelings involved.
I'm very left-wing, and I actually despise the idea of just doing what makes me happy. I'm very motivated by the idea of doing things that cause me suffering, but ultimately result in growth, me becoming a better person.
But a lot of liberal philosophy and a lot of liberals themselves go back to emotional arguments and feelings. Which is why you see a lot of these clips online where, liberal snowflake and, libs of TikTok, like it all comes across because a lot of the arguments are emotional. By the way, I don't disagree with emotional arguments necessarily. I'm not saying they're rational. But if someone makes an emotional argument, they say, I want to live my life in a way that's going to make me the most happiest, and they're making an emotional argument, I'm saying to that person, having a psychic view is better than having a view that nothing has consciousness.
I suspect the idea that nothing has consciousness is crazy. Yeah. Because each individual...
Nothing apart from us, I mean.
Okay. Well, I think most of us agree that animals probably have some level of consciousness, yeah?
No, I definitely believe that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So, I agree with
By the way, you should agree with that because if you believe in the standard Darwinian view, pretty much, right?